That's always a good thing.
All right.
So Kate, take it away.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us at the New Jersey Business and Industry Association Sales and Marketing Roundtable. We at NJBIA are thrilled to have helped in the creation of this amazing group led by such amazing women. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association in the nation, representing about 1 million jobs in the state of New Jersey, which is approximately 1/4 of all New Jersey employees. And we offer customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, or our podcast and TV shows, and money-saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, a 401k solution, and 24/7 HR support. I am Kate Conroy, and if you're interested in more info on us, I will drop the link into the chat along with my contact info. Feel free to be in touch and we can get you whatever you need. And with that, I will now toss it back to the marvelous Rachel Durkin.
Thank you and welcome everyone. We're so excited for you to be here today. And I am so excited about this guest. I won't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure everyone's excited. Before we get started, first let me introduce myself. I am Rachel Durkin. My company is Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and workflow agency specializing in clients that have a complex sale. So if you require an individual to have a conversation, aka a sales team, to close a deal, we can help them shorten their sales cycle and increase the number of meetings that they are having. I want to take just 1 minute to thank our sponsors and to talk about next month's event. So first, thank you to Kim Luthi from, and I know Kim dearly, and she is an amazing woman. So she can help you with all of your financial independence and your financial needs as you plan your short and long-term financial goals. But let me just read a little bit about her. Kim Luthi is a proud sponsor of the Sales and Marketing Roundtable. She's dedicated to empowering clients to control their own destiny as a walking testimonial to all the potential challenges that can derail your financial future. She intimately understands clients' concerns. She is a woman of grit, which for her stands for gratitude, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. As a certified financial planner, certified divorce financial analyst, and a certified in long-term care, Kim is equipped with all the tools to help clients find clarity and achieve financial independence. If you are looking for an advisor to support you, I highly recommend Kim. She's also a very good time to hang out with and talk to. So if you're looking for a friend, she can help you out with that too. I also want to thank Cal Thomas from Sandler Training. Pretty much, I think everybody, and I won't speak for you, Steve, on this that you see right here has been Sandler trained. Sandler, I can't say enough about Sandler training. When I started taking Sandler years ago, my closing rate went from 40% to 70%. So if you're looking for a way to put structure around your sales strategy and create and follow a process that was going to create proven results, I highly recommend you speak to Cal Thomas at Sandler Training for all of your sales training needs. Last thing I want to talk to you about next month's event. If you are not yet registered, I highly recommend you do so. Donna will drop the link in the chat right now, or I will afterwards. But we are going to have Dan Gingiss, who is a published author of the book, The Experience Maker. And he talks about how creating an amazing customer experience will increase your sales revenue and your sale and grow your business, and how a customer experience can create brand advocates and be your strongest marketing strategy yet. So I highly recommend you register for that for March. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Donna to introduce our amazing speaker for this month.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kate. So I'm Donna Miller, Chief Visionary Officer at C3 Workplace, where we provide space and support to help companies start and grow. I'm also now entering my next chapter, which is called Donna Miller, Business Growth Consultant, where I find myself working with B2B professionals and creative service owners who are looking to create a path out of their business. You know, what are we all doing it for? So if that's something that interests you, I'm happy to talk more. And we are thrilled to have Steve Wiideman here today. He literally wrote the textbook on SEO. So Steve is a writer, a scientist, a professor, practitioner of search optimization. Steve lives, breathes, and eats SEO, SEM, and inbound marketing. And I find this like the most complex art meets science meets constantly changing. He is the author of SEO Strategy and Skills, the college textbook, when he's not leading his SEO team of consultants for franchise, multi-location, and e-commerce brands. He is a self-admitted cheeseball romantic, entertaining dad, and world traveler with a passion for life, embracing culture and diversity. Good for you, Steve. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Steve. We're all going to turn our video off. You've got the stage, and I want to encourage all of you. We will have a good amount of time at the end for Q&A. Vicki Hart, the fantastic Vicki Hart from Paradigm Marketing Design, will lead our Q&A segment. And we're going to ask you, because we have a good crowd here, use the chat window for chatting and networking, but put your questions in the Q&A section because it becomes a little unwieldy. So with that, Steve, you are on, and I will leave the stage.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone. And such a pleasure to be here. I know there's a lot of mystery and fog when it comes to things like search engine optimization. And we get those calls every day, like, hey, I can do your SEO for you for $200 a month. Or, there's just a lot of people out there taking advantage of businesses. And my hope, and our mission at Wiideman is to build transparency and to sort of enlighten the business community as to what's really involved in SEO. And as it turns out, most of what you're going to be doing, and we'll walk through this in the presentation, you could probably do in-house. You don't really need an SEO expert on your team if you've got somebody who can write some great content, somebody who could do a little bit of outreach and collaboration with other brands, and somebody who's technically savvy on the team to manage the website. If you're working on those three things and you have those three people, maybe a little bit of guidance and a roadmap could be all that's needed to really get the team going. So my hope for you is that at some point you in-house a lot of your SEO efforts and lean on consultants and folks that have been in the industry a while as you get hung up on some of your objectives. So today, the presentation I'm going to share in a moment, we're going to walk through basically what's involved in an SEO strategy. What are those components that each team has to be focused on? And what are some ways that you can measure success? I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges in the industry is a lot of businesses measure success in SEO by their keyword rankings. And yeah, the keyword rankings are a clue, because if you're not showing up in the top of search, you're probably not getting a lot of traffic. But it's really, at the end of the day, how much revenue you're driving, how many leads you're bringing in. And that, as long as it's coming from organic search, is how we would measure SEO. So let's jump in. I'll share my screen. As Donna mentioned, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. I also got a list of folks that would like us to do a sort of a site clinic. If I had them a little bit earlier, I would have put a few together already for you, but we'll reach out. And if you'd like us to review your website, we'll go through and look at tech and content and a little bit of off-page, and hopefully it provides some helpfulness. There's no sales or anything in it. It's just something free that we do for the small business community. So feel free, if you're not on that list and you want to get on it after this, let somebody who is running that webinar know. So I'm going to put on my BCGs, was what my wife calls them. She calls them birth control glasses. So you can laugh at me here. And let's get the screen going. Let's do this screen share. And hopefully you can see my screen. It says every person running a Zoom ever, right? All right, so let's go into it. So we're going to build a comprehensive SEO strategy. That's our goal here. And in doing so, we're going to look at all the major disciplines of what goes into search. This screenshot you see at the top is a screenshot of a Rolex consignment site that I started with in 2010. Now I go in probably once a quarter. Last year I went in just twice, and now it's at 120 million a year from literally just a safe full of Rolex watches. All it took was creating the same roadmap that we're going to walk through. So we'll talk about some of the timing and deliverables to expect of your team or of the agency that you're going to be working with. We're going to talk about establishing some of these key performance indicators that are important. We'll talk about ongoing search engine optimization. At some point, businesses will call it maintenance, right? Or web maintenance or SEO maintenance. It's not really maintenance, because we're talking about a garden of traffic that we're growing, and we constantly need to be pouring water and sunlight on it. Maintenance is something that you do to adjust, right? To sort of some preventative, and other times it's to fix things. But what we're going to be talking about is ongoing optimization. Those pages that you're going to try to rank in search, your competitors, when you beat them in the search results, they're not going to rest on their laurels. They're not going to put their feet up and say, oh, well, good for them, we're happy for them. They're going to reverse engineer what you're doing, and they're going to constantly be competing with you for that top spot because nobody uses a phone book anymore. And they know most of their business comes from search. And then the things everybody loves: tools, takeaways, templates. You'll have all sorts of templates you can download, and they're all free. Please share. Everyone's going, why is Wiideman sharing all this stuff? Well, I teach at 9 different classes at 3 different universities. I share all day long, and I'm happy to share all of the assets that we work with, both in our Academy of Search program that we have, which I'll make sure you have a free promo code for if you can hang through this webinar, as well as through the business community, where we're working with small businesses and trying to help them where we can. So I'm a big Jim Rohn fan. Jim Rohn says you don't have to do extraordinary things, to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And as it turns out, in the SEO world, in today's SEO world in 2022, we don't have to worry about trying to do crazy shortcuts and tactics anymore. We just need to do what Google's recommending we do and do it better than how our competition is doing it. And I believe that. And if somebody comes in and says, hey, I know an SEO hack, be careful, because it could leave a digital footprint that Googlebot will find at some point. Hey, that's my, you have a webinar going right now, Steve. And so what happens is, as I mentioned, some people will come in and say, hey, I've got this great technique, and all we have to do is make it look like 1,000 people are searching for our business. Or all we have to do is go to LinkedIn and buy 10,000 links. And problem with that is that eventually Google's going to figure that out. And not only are you going to lose your rankings, but you could get permanently penalized. And that's something hard to recover from. We've had to help at least 3 different brands over the last 2 decades move to a completely different website, not redirect any of their traffic, and literally start over. So, try to avoid anything that feels like you're trying to manipulate search results. And I'll show you how to, create a plan that will allow you to do things the right way. So as I mentioned, water and sunlight. We're going to do that around our content, making sure our content is better than our competition, is more helpful than our competitions, is thumb friendly so that users don't have to use their mobile keyboard. We're going to talk about visibility off the website, a little bit about Larry Page's PageRank, and we're going to talk about search behavior signals. What does this mean? This answers the question of how long does it take to rank for a competitive keyword? I get that question all the time. In fact, sometimes it's the first question that I'll get when I walk into an event where people are interested in SEO is, Wiideman, how long is it going to take me to rank? And so here's how I like to describe it. And no one at Google or any of the former Google engineers that we've talked to have disagreed with this. So, it's up to you whether you believe it or not. The first one is content. And if we have all the right keywords off the bat of how we know people are searching for us, so that when the web crawlers crawl through the internet and they find our pages, they look at those search terms, those words that are on our page, and say, I should try some of these search terms for this page and see how users respond to it. So it's that first initial crawl of the website that helps the search engines understand what this page might be about, and to test our page for the words that it found on it. And it's 1 to 4 months usually, and then you'll see us somewhere on the second page of Google. And then it comes to the off-page side. It's getting the search engines to get to our content by having other websites linked to us. And we do that by having some of the best content that solves problems: how to, where to, why to, what is, ideas, strategies, tips, checklists, you name it, all those great upper funnel ideas that only you know about, that you're an expert in, that you can provide really great content for, where people are going to find it and link to it because it's a referenceable thing that they can add to their article or that they can share with their audiences. So you start to attract those links, and then within a few months, you find yourself on the first page of Google. I've got great keyword-rich content without being spammy. I've got powerful inbound links that are coming in from industry and relevant websites that are sharing in my content and sort of calling me an authority by how they're linking to me and curating some of our content. So I've sort of proven myself to Google, and I've made myself on the first page of the search results, but I'm not number one, right? And this is where the challenge comes in. This comes into a little bit of my story in the 12 years that I used to rank for the term SEO expert. And to do that, it was actually a challenge by my boss at Disney. My boss said, look, I know you're running the paid search for Disneyland Commerce and Marketing, and you want to do the SEO, but I don't think there's a way to quantify it, and I don't know that you have enough expertise. And so I said, well, what if, what if I'm ranking for a keyword? Like right now I'm ranking for Orange County SEO expert or something. And he goes, yeah, but nobody's searching for that. Show me you can get to the first page, or show me that you can rank for SEO expert, and then we'll talk. And so I did these things. I created a great page. I got some links to my page. I got to the first page and I went to my boss, Terry, and I said, Terry, check it out. I'm on the first page of Google for SEO expert. And he says, yeah, but you're not number one. And so I did this series of experiments where I did some public speaking, and I asked people to search, where do I rank right now? I called my friends, my peers, and hey, where do I rank right now? And then, over several months, this is like 2006. So even back then, SEO expert wasn't really a term people used. And so so they did, they clicked, and I would say, hey, show of hands if we actually clicked my listing. And a few people raised their hands. I said, great, you just helped me to move up my rankings by showing Google that I was a better result than the other 9 listings. And then within a month or two of doing that work, I got that number 1 spot, went back to my boss, and I'm like, check it out, I'm number 1. And he's like, all right, great, let's do some SEO. What do you want to do first? And I said, let's take this Flash Adventures by Disney site and turn it into HTML so that Google can crawl and find actual family travel to Ireland pages and family travel to, to Greece or whatever. And then eventually that term, even though I was ranking for so long and so well, and it generated so much business for us, kind of got me blacklisted from the industry as being a braggart for being number 1 for SEO expert. So it was a sacrifice of mine 2.5, 3 years ago. We got rid of the page completely, and now I'm well immersed in my community, and I've got a lot of really great peers. In fact, last week I was in Maui in a mastermind group that I was invited to that I wouldn't have been if I were still trying to brag about being number 1 for SEO expert. So it's good and bad. So that's the process in our experience in trying to get it to actually work all the way through. So here's the 4 areas. We're going to talk about that competitive baseline, so we have something to measure against. We're going to look at tech. We're going to get into keyword research and content, and look a little bit at off-page opportunities, one of the most challenging areas of search. Here's what you should expect with either a third party or with your own internal team as you start thinking about what the strategies and deliverables are. And you can go through this list yourself. I'm not going to roll through the whole thing, but basically it starts with a kickoff, getting access to all the tools and things that you'll need to look at, like analytics and Search Console. You'll want to make sure that, we've kind of prioritized those top pages that we know are going to drive the most customers for us. We're going to do a kind of a launch plan, and we're going to review the plan together so that everybody's on the same page and everyone knows what they're accountable for. And then, of course, we'll get all of our tracking mechanisms together and get that first performance call on the calendar. Competitive analysis. So to me, this is one of the most important reports. When I was a freelance SEO back in the 2000s, I had some really exciting wins after 6 months, a year of working with a client. And when I go back to the client, I'm like, wow, look at all the traffic we've been driving and all the different things that we've been nurturing to get where we are today. And the client would come back and say, it's great. Where were we when we started? I didn't record that. I just started working. Right? Where were our competitors? Oh, I didn't record that either. So having that competitive baseline gives you something that you can run a Delta report against later on. So these are things that we'll talk through in the tech audit, but things like security, privacy, speed, accessibility, which is a controversial topic because Google said a few times that we don't directly use accessibility, but if users don't have a good experience and have accessibility problems, they'll bounce, they won't click on your listing again, and that can affect your long-term SEO. And then mobile user experience, we'll get into that as well. So this baseline, as I mentioned, includes what we just talked about, as well as things like speed, SSL security. It's going to be about your privacy policy, inbound links, all of those things that we know are sort of core. And you can see in the background what this chart looks like. This is when we did Applebee's versus Chili's. You'll have access to these templates as well. So if you want to kind of create your own, you can do that. So here's that example. Here's us, here's them, here's our mobile page speed versus them. We highlight who's winning so that in 6 months or a year from now, we can go back through and say, hey, look, when we started, they were winning and now we're winning because we've addressed these things. How many websites are linking to us? Ahrefs is one of the tools we'll talk about that helps with inbound links. So we'll look at what that score looks like and how it's improved. So these are kind of common industry software tool metrics a lot of them really don't mean anything other than just giving us sort of a trend of where we are. The numbers themselves are relative. And if you focus too much on the numbers and not on the work required and the pattern of growth and improving numbers, then you find yourself getting obsessed. So don't obsess over numbers. Don't obsess over search volume numbers. Just use them as sort of a trend signal. Technical SEO. So again, that was our baseline. That was our competitive analysis report. Now we're going to talk about tech. Here's Hansel Carcamo on our team. Just kind of give me a picture of some of the folks that we work with. Obstacle analysis report is the techie nerd term for it, but really it's just a technical audit. So we'll talk about what's involved here. In this case, the way that we'll organize this is we'll make sure the priority items are at the top. So when the webmaster says, well, where should I start? You say, these are the top priority items that are going to help us drive the most organic traffic as possible, then medium, then low, and then some of the conclusions and inferences that we drew from where we think the priority should be. In that audit, we'll include a few attributes to help the developer. Unfortunately, a lot of agencies, when they deliver an audit, won't tell you what tools they used, won't tell you how to retest, won't give you much context on it. They'll just try to shove a bunch of big words at you, try to feel like they know what they're doing better than you do so that you'll trust them and hire them. Don't fall for that. If you get a report like that, ask for it back in this format and say, could you tell me the testing tool you use so I can retest? Can you give me links to Google documentation that shows that Google wants us to do this, not just because you think it might help? And maybe a video or a training video to help us really understand what this is so that we can fix it. So in this case, you can see the testing tool, you can see those links. And this is just a security audit that was ran through SSL Labs. So choosing the right e-commerce CMS. I know a lot of folks are doing some sort of online commerce now. We've included this in a lot of the trainings we've done recently because of the pandemic. A lot of businesses that were just brick and mortar and doing offline are starting to do some things online, even just setting an appointment or purchasing a particular part. All that kind of stuff is happening online. So here's some things that you can look at. Talk to your developer about these things and when you're choosing a platform. I'm a huge fan of Shopify. They've been doing great things, evolving and improving their product over time. They've got fast loading pages. They've got a tap-friendly experience for mobile users. So you just tap, 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 hit your shop button and you're done. No keyboard required for those people who are driving and shouldn't be doing things, but it works. And Shopify is a great system. We have another one we use as well, the one I'd mentioned earlier, the Rolex site. If you'd like to hear more about that one, let me know. It is a bit more of a proprietary system, but it's super affordable and does compete really well with Shopify. Accessibility. So this is one where I'd mentioned before, it's not necessarily a direct correlation. Google's not going to crawl your website and say, oh, I don't see a nav tag being used, or I don't see an alt tag being used. So they decide they're not going to rank you in the search results. That's not how it works. In fact, some of the top ranking pages in the industry are the worst in terms of ADA compliancy. We're doing this because we're chipping away at all of the different little factors that could play a role in search. And this particular one affects the user behavior signals, because if folks have an accessibility issue to deal with and you've got light text on a light background and they can't see the text or it's too small, that's a challenge for them. They're going to leave your website and go choose a competitor from the search results. And if the search engines see that enough, they start to infer, well, maybe that wasn't a very helpful result. Maybe this site wasn't very useful to my visitors, or for that 2% or 3% of visitors who have accessibility issues. So thinking about that, and there's some tools that you could use for that. The Wave accessibility tool is one of my favorites. It's a free extension for Google Chrome. So SSL, more important than SEO is your users' security. They need to feel secure. And if they don't see that lock, that padlock in the browser, they're not going to feel comfortable. And if you've got a form on your page and no padlock in the address bar, Google may even show a red screen of death for you and say, warning, the site's collecting secure information on an insecure website, right? Personal information on an insecure website. So very important to make sure you're using SSL. Most SSLs now are pretty much free. You can just go to your web host and say, do you offer a free SSL I could use? though better encryption options are available, and you should talk to your web host about, what's right for you based on the type of information your customers are sharing. Privacy, GDPR, I know it drives you crazy, it drives me crazy. Every time I go to a website now, it's pop-ups, cookies, and all these crazy things. It's like, I just want to visit the website. Isn't there something I can hit in my browser that says just accept cookies everywhere, right? And just get it over with? There's not. And the governments of the world are making our lives hell as webmasters. And as internet users, it's frustrating for 90% of us. And the 10% that do care about the cookies and the privacy thing still click OK every single time. So it's like, it's such a strange thing. And here's what happens with it. If you're not, you have to have privacy. You have to let your customers know what you're doing with the privacy, but don't let it get out of control. Because if you do, it ends up like you're back in the 90s with all these crazy pop-ups. It's annoying. And what happens? The user behavior, right? They're going to go back to Google and say, give me a listing that I can actually navigate through without having to click a bunch of buttons, especially for mobile users who are trying to click a small X in the corner of a box that just won't seem to close. So they click the back arrow or they swipe left and they go back to the search results. Structured markup. So this is a techie geeky thing that I don't expect business owners to memorize, but it does enhance what our search results look like. And there's a very easy library that you could use to navigate which particular structured markup items you could use on your page. These make your listing stand out. Google calls it their rich result library, or rich result gallery. So if you perform a search for that rich result gallery, you'll actually see the Google developer page that walks through the different things that you can do, including star ratings in the search results, including frequently asked questions, including image and video thumbnails next to your listings, all sorts of really cool things that you can do to get your listing to stand out. And if there's 10 listings in the search result and yours stands out, guess which one they're probably going to click on, and guess which user behavior signal that one affects in terms of keyword rankings, right? So we want to test a few things, see what other competitors are doing, test our own, make ours better, and see if we can get more of the clicks. And worst case scenario, even if rankings don't improve from better clicks, you're still getting more traffic from search because you're getting more clicks. So let's talk about off-page. That was our tech audit. Let's get into a little bit of the off-page signals that search engines use, the links. This crazy graph in my background here is taken from Larry Page's original backrub algorithm that became PageRank. And PageRank isn't where you rank on the page. PageRank is what Larry and Sergey created as a way to measure the importance and relevance of your content. And they do that by looking at how you're linking to your own content. But more importantly, they do it in how other websites are voting for you by linking to your content. So if you've got a page on, I don't know, what was a good example? With Skechers, we had a page for how to clean white shoes, right? So that's our page, and we want to earn links to it so that Google can navigate to our website more often and hopefully push some of that voting power through to our site. So we create this amazing page. We do a little bit of outreach to similar content or to fashion websites and fitness websites and those folks that would have an interest in cleaning shoes. And then we say, hey, we've got this great thing we put together with 3 tips on what to do and how it works, and cool little diagram and a help guide and a video. And the person receiving that says, yeah, this is really helpful. And this is cool that you put this out here. I'm sure our visitors would love some of this content. Can I curate from it and reference yours? Yeah, by all means, right? But that's kind of how that link building process works, and how Google differentiated themselves by using PageRank as the primary way to determine whether your page is going to be helpful, not just by the content, but by how others are voting for your content through links. So what goes into that link analysis and strategy? We do want to make sure we're looking at everything from perhaps you've got some suspicious looking links coming in. Maybe a competitor is trying to do something to make it seem like your gaming search results. So we'll want to look at those, and then we'll basically submit those to Google in their search console and say, I didn't do these. Please don't count them for or against me. It's called a disavow. We'll want to look at intersecting link opportunities. So if you've got 20, 30, 50 competitors, let's take the links that all of those competitors have earned. Let's run a little pivot table in Excel, and let's find out where the most frequent ones are. I think what you'll find in that research is a lot of industry related websites that your competitors are getting free traffic from that you're not. So it's a double win. One, I'm going to find out where my competitors are getting their traffic and where most of them are getting visibility. And in doing so, I'm going to get some links to my site that Google is going to help to rank. And this also helps you if you think about the semantic web. Our goal is to kind of get to the center of this semantic web that Google's using. And if we're out in left field where we don't have a lot of the same websites that are linking to us that are linking to competitors, maybe they won't categorize us correctly. But if we get links from the same places that 5 competitors, 10 competitors, 20 competitors are all getting links from, now we're at the center of that semantic web, and Google might try our website for different keywords and categories, even if we don't have the content on our website for it. Obvious opportunities. So I mentioned Skechers. So if you're into shoes, fashion and fitness bloggers would be obvious opportunities. Creative opportunities. You can come up with tools and fun badging systems and ways to run best of sort of competitions and awards to basically other folks in the industry. And in doing so, and doing these fun little engaging sort of roundups and best ofs, you earn links because you're giving them free visibility on your website, and they're going to say, hey, check it out. So-and-so said that we're in their top 10 list. That's great. It's a cool way to do some things. And you can give them a little badge for it and say, you were the 2022 winner of our annual best of contest. Buying guides are amazing. Tutorials are fantastic as well. And there's some of the tools that you could use. One of my favorites we'll talk about in content is called Answer the Public. Gives you lots of really great free ideas that are questions that your customers have or potential customers have that could drive some really good links to your site. So as I mentioned, we want to build authoritative links. We don't want to go to Fiverr. We don't want to use tools, link building tools. We don't want to use automated link building. All of those sort of things leave a digital footprint that tells the search engine that we're trying to gain results and that we aren't earning visibility. So be very careful. This is in the SEO course that I teach at Fullerton College. This is the list that our students are going through this week and looking at qualifying links. So I said, here's a friend of mine, Bodine Velasco, who's a public speaker. He has 20 links pointing to his website. It's not a lot, but which of these links are going to be helpful for his SEO? And this is the criteria to use. So they went through this list. Is this page likely to earn links on its own because it's that helpful and people search for this kind of content? Or is it just some sort of an author profile somewhere on a site that probably wouldn't get a lot of traffic? Is it likely to send qualified leads? Is the content itself on a site that would be helpful and relevant to our customers? I don't think there's a shoe magazine, but if there were, shoemagazine.com, Skechers would be perfect for that, and it would drive good referral business for them. And brand awareness. So what if it isn't likely to build a lot of links of its own? And what if it isn't necessarily going to drive the perfect customers to us in terms of referral, but it could be seen by 100,000 visitors? Maybe we're mentioned in a news article or publication. I was in one, I think it was about a year and a half ago for American Express. They interviewed me for some of the travel tips because I traveled to a lot of conferences. And I got a great mention there. And I got a few phone calls from people that said, hey, I read this article on MX and I heard you guys do SEO. I thought, wow, that's pretty neat that I actually got a referral from it, even though the site itself had nothing to do with SEO. So that's something where I would say, hey, if you're going to get a lot of brand awareness out of it, go for it. So those are those 3 criteria. Don't do anything that looks like it was paid or bought or purchased or negotiated. Stay away from private blog networks. If an SEO comes in and says, I've got a PBN, we're going to put you on 10,000 websites, but we're going to do this thing. Just say, I don't want to do anything that's not going to, match these 3 criteria, and walk away. and if it's just completely unrelated itself at all to you, your brand, your company, just stay away from it. All right, so here's my outreach sequence. How do you do this thing, Wiideman? How do you actually perform outreach and get sites to link to? Well, the first way we already talked about is getting them to reference something that you created. So when you do create that amazing article with pictures and images, and we did this with Meineke. If you go back and look at, I think it was 2014 when we went through that initiative, and you look at the content we created every Tuesday, every single one of them had a picture and a video and a walkthrough. They really took the time and energy to create one amazing page a week. it took them a half day to go in and get the pictures and the videos and stuff they wanted. And then it took them half a day to write the content. And then they had to publish it. And then they went out to, all of the different folks that they've built relationships with and said, hey, we created this amazing page. Would you be willing to share it with your audience? And feel free to reference our short summary at the top, since that's probably the most helpful and it summarizes everything. Well, why would I want other folks to steal and curate my 375 character or less summary? Well, because if enough people do, I might earn that featured answer at the top of the search results, or as we call it, the coveted position 0. So the more people share that short answer, that short checklist, the more Google believes that might be the best answer. And, getting links and ranking is great, but if you can get that featured answer at the top, talk about authoritative, right? So getting them to reference something, cross promoting with other brands. That's a great thing to do. You're in the print world, and this company does ink. Great, team up, work together, collaborate, do some content strategies together that allow you both, to earn links from one another in a way that doesn't look like a reciprocal link, but it looks like genuine voting and referencing of content that you're sharing. Contribution. So this is something where you could reach out to a blogger on a particular topic, or an article site or a magazine, and say, hey, we noticed that you're not writing a lot on this particular topic. We've got a lot of data that we know about our customers. We're happy to share some of that data with you first, before we go to your competitor, to this other website. And but we want to give you first dibs. So we've already kind of written this thing up. Take a look at it. If you'd like to publish it, great. If not, let me know, and we'll give it to these other folks. It's contributing free content, free time. In some cases, contribution could be volunteering to be a guest speaker at colleges and universities in the topic that you have an expertise in. I do this as frequently as I can. I was anyway before the pandemic started. And I've earned mentions and links from Biola University, Northridge, Cal State Fullerton, which actually earned me an adjunct position there. So contribution, giving your time, giving your expertise can generate links for you. Sponsorship, be careful with sponsorship, because that could be inferred as buying links. And sponsorship means maybe you're sponsoring a industry event or a local sporting team. So be very careful with that whole sponsorship idea. All right, let's talk about content. How are we doing on time? I don't want to overkill. I think we're okay. So content
Steve,
strategy.
if you could maybe 10 more minutes, that'll leave us 10 minutes for
That's
Q&A.
Let's do it. All right. So content, without content, the crawlers aren't going to find the keywords that they are going to test your page for. The other folks that are on the internet, the other experts, aren't going to link to you, right? We really need content. We need to create a content roadmap that's going to drive both lower and upper funnel visits to our site. So we do a keyword discovery report, and there is Jeremy and almost I want to say selfie or halfie of Dan White over there. You can see his ear. Those are two people on our team. Jeremy actually does our content strategy here, and he does the content as well with what we're doing with IHOP and Applebee's. We're just about to launch some really cool things with IHOP to help them with off-premises and delivery and takeout. So look for breakfast delivery near me and takeout delivery near me where there is an Applebee's and IHOP. And on the IHOP side, there's going to be some really cool looking content coming soon. So keyword research and building an information architecture. This is probably one of the most time consuming things you'll do. Not necessarily the most challenging, but most time consuming. What's a taxonomy? Is where we're going to organize our content in a way that gives the most important pages the most attention. And we do that by linking to those pages the most and creating a silo of content underneath it. Instead of just shrapneling our best content, or worse, throwing our greatest evergreen content on a blog post, we put that great content as a page in support of the pages that we really want to rank. So if we want to rank for, I don't know, I've got models in here, Rolex models, right? In this case, and that's an important keyword for us as people are browsing and at the category level. Then we'll nest our content underneath that parent category, and we'll organize our sites accordingly. So here you've got, if we want to rank for Rolex 116400V, it'll be that subcategory, and then it's supportive content underneath it, not just all off the root of the site. So think about that as you start to look at your own content. Maybe get an index or a list of all your pages, put it in Excel, and start exploring how it's organized. Can you reorganize it? in a way that gives that supportive content the ability to push that really competitive lower funnel content to the top. Here's how we look at our internal linking strategy and how breadcrumbs can play a role in that. Also a role in how our search result looks in Google. And that's a basis of how we're looking at content. So let's go into that recap. We looked at the competitive baseline. We looked at common metrics of ways that we can measure ourselves and our competition. We performed a link audit and created a strategy that we know will attract links to our site over time. And then we also looked at some ways that we can take keywords that are important to us and organize them in the right way. And there's lots of tools I'd mentioned earlier and ways that you can answer the public, for example, SEMrush. If you've got the budget for it, you could use Conductor Searchlight. It's an amazing tool that gives you some really neat forecasting features as well. All right, key performance indicators. I told you we're going to look at how we measure success. So let's figure out what those are. Every business is going to be different. Here is the template that you can use. Feel free to download it. It is yours. Enjoy, explore all the different hidden rows that we have in there. Make it your own. Change it to the KPIs that are important for your business. In this case, we've incorporated things like, well, it's not showing over here, but things like the links that are coming in so that we can see how we're growing the number of links that are coming into our site. Looking at our average keyword position. So what's our goal? Well, our average keyword position when we started was 6. Our goal is to get in the number 1 spot, right? So that's the goal. And then you can see in this column, we're tracking our progress. So every month you get with your webmaster, you get with your content writer, you get with your link team, and you say, guys, let's look at our KPIs and see how we're doing. And as a team, everybody is bought in and accountable to the success of what we're doing with SEO. The green highlight is usually the core business objectives for the CMO or the C-suite. They care about where do we rank, how much revenue are we driving from Google Maps and from our organic search. That's all they care about, bottom line. But for us as the folks that are accountable for the SEO, we care about following our keyword market share. For the keywords that we're tracking, how much share of voice are we getting for it? We care about Yelp revenue and how we're generating revenue from providers like Yelp. We care about directions. All of these things play a small signal in the success of what we're doing at the bottom line. So being able to create that KPI tracker is really important in being able to track your progress. So when somebody says, how are we doing within our SEO goals? You can say, well, in terms of revenue, we're already 121%. We've already hit our goal. Great, keep up the good work. That's all they want to hear. So fast forwarding to tomorrow, here are some things to think about. Voice readiness. So it's still a thing. People are still using voice devices. I think they were saying 180 voice devices were being shipped a minute across the world. So people are starting to learn how to use them. They're getting acclimated to it. Commerce is still slow on Google. It's picking up on Amazon. Getting that thumb only experience so you can just tap your way through, using autofill on forms, being able to have a payment integration like Amazon or Shop if you're using Shopify, so that users can just single click their way through an experience. And then markup, I'd mentioned earlier, the more we're working on testing different ways to stand out in the search results, the more clicks we'll get, and hopefully the higher rankings we'll see. And then measurement. We're losing a lot of the third-party tools and third-party cookies that we had as privacy gets better and better, but we still have first-party data, and we can still use that, and we can still learn from it, and we can pivot our strategy based on what we understand about the demographics of our audience and what their interests are and how they navigate our own website. We still have that data. So really get into attribution, really get into understanding our visitor experience, test heat maps like Hotjar. Position 0, we talked about this. I won't beat it up, but our friends over at SEMrush did say that 30% of mobile searches could already be voice. Here was that example. You can see how it's picking up over time and people using this. I won't use this one because it'll kick off my my own voice system. Start your Google Assistant. So some ways that you can get into voice. As I mentioned, you can start with making sure that your site is mobile ready first, and then get it to a place where if there's a search box, they can just click the microphone icon and boom, they can voice in their search instead of having to type in a word into your website search. The Google Assistant Action Console is also a great place to get in there, claim your business, put some basic information in that. So if somebody is asking about your business to the assistant, you'll have some basic information about hours of operation or business address or anything that your customer service team says people ask about when they call in. Here's that example of the switching the magnifying glass on your mobile view of the website to a microphone, because people don't really want to use their keyboards if they don't have to. And then here's, a lot of those different tools that we had talked about a little bit. The free ones are out there with Google. Those Google developer tools are amazing. Google Search Console being the best. There's also SEMrush. Pingdom does some speed things for you. There's Deep Crawl. We've been using a system called Write. We've also been using a new system called Market Brew that's really interesting. Web Page Test is another free tool you can use, and WhiteSpark will help you figure out where your competitors are earning a lot of their business listings and citations. Really cool. Here's some guides that you could use as you're starting to create content. It goes through the specific page level SEO attributes. So looking at titles and headings and subheadings and image names and page names, all of those different attributes that we could apply our keywords to, and how to apply those keywords. Both are in here. If you're e-com, use that first one. If you're doing lead generation, you could use that second one. So that's it. That was kind of the run through. We talked about tech. We talked about link building. We did our baseline audits. Took about 35 days. We did some keyword research. We built a content roadmap, a taxonomy of content we already have that we need to improve and nurture, and new content that we found in doing our keyword research. We established what our key performance indicators are going to be. And we started to think about what we want to do in 2023 as we address voice search and think about the ways that we can measure first-party data. And that will wrap it up. I'll start sharing, and hopefully we can jump into some Q&A.
Thank you, Steve. So I'm going to hand Q&A to Vicky in just a second. And I want to ask one question to kick off the Q&A. So I'm probably the least marketing educated person on the panel, and my head's about to explode, and I'm thinking I may not be alone. And I have this love-hate relationship with SEO and SEM because it's so powerful, but it seems so huge. And at the beginning, you said that many of this stuff you can do in-house.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have a small marketing team, and our audience is diverse. So
Sure.
If we were to think about doing some of this in-house, where do we start? What's the thing we should start with? Because we want to do it well, and that might mean outsourcing. So what's the best thing to do internally versus outsourcing?
Building the roadmap and putting it into your project management system. So throughout this presentation, you saw little mentions of Academy of Search. If you want to use this program that I sort of curated my own content from Cal State Fullerton, use code SEO Steve. You'll get free access to it, save you $600. But it has all of our templates in there. We're going through an update of the program as well. So if you go back in probably in April, you'll see all the newest, latest, greatest templates. But everything we talked about today, all of those templates and how to use them are part of that program. So I would start by figuring out what is our roadmap, what are the keywords and pages we need to create, where are the technical issues with our website we need to address, where are those link opportunities that we want to go after this year. Let's put them into a project management system. I love Monday.com. It's super easy to use. You probably saw them on the Super Bowl, right? They had a commercial on it. So in Monday, you'd create a list for tech, prioritized based on our audit template that was already prioritized. And then have another list for content and list out all of those pages that we want to work on. Then another page for links and the ones that we want to really focus on this year or this month. So create those lists, those task lists in Monday.com, and assign them to different team members. One to your webmaster, one to somebody who's going to write some content, even if it's only an hour a week, right? Whatever you can do. And then somebody who's going to do the outreach. And I know you still feel resource constrained because maybe there isn't anyone on the team that has the time to do any of this. So one thing that I can offer is, because I have been working with a lot of students, if you'd like an introduction to a marketing student who's interested in doing an internship or getting some experience that would work for free, let me know and I can make some introductions to some of the students. I've taught over 430 students so far, and I've got at least 30 of them who have said, I would love an internship or to do something with you, please let me know if you have somebody. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know and I'll make some introductions for you.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Steve. Vicki, I'm
Wow,
handing it
Donna,
over.
we could barely keep you in your little box with that offer.
Oh, I was like,
I kind of feel like how many
just-
boxes we have
my
like in
head
Hollywood
hurts.
Squares. You guys
Just a
remember that,
little
or
bit
is that just really tell my age? Yeah,
There's no Paul Lind in the middle. So how about that for showing age?
right.
Well, Steve,
That would make me
SEO
Alf, I think, right?
Okay, now we are really starting to date ourselves. SEO is one of those magical mystery things that has many people. I mean, I've been involved in marketing for years, and no matter how many times Rachel and our SEO specialists try to explain it, I always leave with something new. And I can't help but now and this kind of feeds into Donna's question, they're the solopreneur, the small guy. So he's always saying, this seems overwhelming for a small business. It's a full-time job. I had to read this because it feels a bit hopeless. And to that point, when you also have to be able to manage this process, how do you recommend for that small business who really might not even know how to direct an intern how to do this? Like, what are bite-sized doable steps? And we often talk about you can't be a little bit pregnant, you can't do SEO a little bit for it to be effective. How, for the small business, what is the best first approach?
Sure. Well, maybe that's when you do reach out to a consultant. I mean, there are plenty in the industry that can work with you and help kind of set up that roadmap for you. And then you've got to block out time to work on it. If you actually get in and look at your web analytics, most of your traffic is coming from people searching for what you offer. It's the reality of it. There's no yellow pages anymore. Your business is coming from existing customers, referrals, and search. So search has to be part of what you're paying attention to. You can't ignore it. If you've been ignoring it, you're limiting your business and what you could be driving and growing from online traffic. So I would block out at least an hour a week, put it on your calendar and say, for 1 hour a week, I'm going to work on these SEO things. And then you look for ways to delegate. You can talk to a consultant about who they could work with. We love to give free advice to small businesses all day. So if there's some guidance that you want from us, you could jump into a Slack channel with other SEO digital marketing folks and ask questions. There's Facebook groups you could go in and jump in, like dumb SEO.
The modern day support group.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, and just say, guys, I could really use some help with this. So in terms of delegating, if you have 1 hour a week, I would have something like Codable.io. Take that tech audit once you've created it or finished it, or even have them do it for you. Take that tech audit and have them work on and give you a quote for the work required in that tech audit. So Codable.io is basically a pool of web developers that work for, they bid against each other to give you the lowest rate and the best quality. For writing, you could use Writer Access. So you go out to Writer Access and you say, hey, I'm in roofing and I need someone with experience in roofing to write these pages that I found when I did a little bit of this keyword research. When I put an hour into it, I figured out I need these pages. So I need someone with roofing experience to help me write this content. And then for $50, $60, they'll write the content for you. For another 10, they'll edit it for you. And then you get it back, you shoot it over to your developer or your webmaster and say, please add this to my website. On the off-page side, that's the tricky part. You can't really outsource that. That's going to take some time, some creativity to build some relationships with other brands in your industry. You're going to have to put yourself out there. I wouldn't outsource link earning, because sometimes they take steps that cost more to clean up than it did to create. So be really careful with that side of search. But yeah, you could do it in an hour a week, easy.
Ooh, the cautionary tale and bite-sized doable chunks. That's the best way to approach anything marketing.
Yeah.
So one of the questions you brought up earlier, you're talking about content management systems, and you talked about some that are open source and closed source platforms.
Sure.
Do you have any predilection on that subject at all? I've heard, definitely you want to have an open source platform. What are your thoughts about that?
right? The way we do websites has changed dramatically. I was just talking to Scott Stouffer yesterday from Market Brew about how easy web design was, 15 years ago. We could build a page with 150 lines of code that loaded in a fraction of a second, and it was a perfect way for us to get our pages up and optimized. But our marketing people couldn't create content because it was all coded with HTML, and marketing people don't code, right? They write. So WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and all of these different systems came out. Now there's hosted solutions like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. All of these platforms provide an environment for marketers to create and publish content, but because it's a one-stop shop sort of scenario, there's a lot of bloat and extra code that you don't need that slows down your website. There's a lot of control you lose in making changes to things that could benefit SEO, like automating the creation of a sitemap or an XML sitemap. So there's limits, and these systems are getting better because they're getting whined at and yelled at by SEO folks all the time. But for it to be an environment for marketers to log in, create new page, and add titles, descriptions, and some metadata in a way that's going to load that page fast and efficiently, it doesn't exist, right? So we're finding band-aids and tools and ways to try to make it happen. Really savvy developers are doing things. But if I had an IT department and a dedicated team of folks that were working on web, I would probably create my own. I'd use the Chrome headless feature to test with, and I would basically build my own homegrown system today, because WordPress and other systems are getting really bloated, but rarely do businesses have that. So in many cases, for lead generation websites, you're kind of stuck with WordPress for now. And there are things that we can do to optimize it. There's Cloudflare that you can layer on top of it to provide better caching and page speed. There's all sorts of things that we can do, plugins and extensions that you could add that will combine a lot of those extra scripts that we hate into one, so that the site loads a little bit faster. So there are workarounds that you could do for WordPress, but it's still the standard. From an e-commerce standpoint, the standard Shopify right now. Yeah, there are other solutions, and some of them do better, but because they're so small, the support you get's usually a lot slower. And you just don't have that same experience. So the industry standard right now, if you're running e-commerce, is going to be Shopify. And if you're on their pro program, there's all sorts of cool tools, extensions, and support that you could get, to make sure that your pages are performing at the way that you expect them to. Great question.
So many choices. So people, make sure you talk to your SEO specialist before you build your website. Being part of the architectural structure is so key to building a site that's going to be more of a race car than a heavy, slow something or other. But it looks like we're coming up on time, and we have tons of questions still, and I'm sorry we didn't get to them all.
No worries. Email them to me. I'll make sure they all get answered.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Rachel, you want to take us on out? I'm going to hop off because I'm heading to my next party. I'm hosting a webinar
Yes.
over
Thank
on
you
another
so
channel.
much, Steve. This was amazing. And I got to just tell you that I laughed. I cackled out loud at your glasses joke. Nobody could hear you, but I thought it was really funny.
I did too.
I
thought that was amazing.
by myself. So best joke I've ever heard on a virtual
I
event.
have my moments.
But thank you so much for this. This was awesome. And again, for all of those of you who want who attend this regularly, and if you enjoyed this event, please join us for the next one in March with Dan Gingiss, the Experience Maker. We look forward to seeing all of you there. And Steve, thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.